One of the central themes of Camus' philosophy is the idea of the absurd. In his famous work, The Myth of Sisyphus, Camus represents the idea of the absurd, which refers to the disconnection between human beings and the world around them. He writes, "The absurd is born out of confrontation between the human need and the unreasonable silence of the world." Camus argues that human beings are driven to find meaning and purpose in life, but the world is ultimately indifferent and meaningless. This creates a sense of absurdity in which human search for meaning is met with a silent and uncaring universe. Another important aspect of Camus' philosophy is the concept of rebellion. He believed that human beings have the ability to rebel against the absurdity of the world and to create meaning in their own lives. In The Rebel, Camus writes, "Rebellion is born of the spectacle of irrationality, confronted with an unjust and incomprehensible condition." He argues that rebellion is a necessary response to the absurdity of existence, and that it is through rebellion that human beings can find freedom and purpose. Camus' idea on rebellion being a necessary action in the face of the absurd is a call for people to take agency in their lives and create meaning on their own terms, rather than finding it externally. The novel The Stranger is another important aspect of Camus' philosophy. The novel is a powerful exploration of the theme of the outsider or the stranger. Camus argues that the outsider or stranger represents the embodiment of the human condition, as they are disconnected from society and thus are able to see the world more clearly. The stranger, Camus writes, "A stranger is someone who comes from far away, not only in space, but in time. He is someone who is not of your world." Camus suggests that the stranger, as an outsider, is able to view the world objectively and without bias. This is a powerful message that encourages people to detach themselves from the world they know and see it with fresh eyes so they can question it and understand it better. For those of you who may not know, the myth of Sisyphus is a story from Greek mythology that tells of a man named Sisyphus who is punished by the gods for his deceitfulness and hubris. According to the myth, Sisyphus was the king of Corinth and was known for his cunning and trickery. He was said to have trapped death and thereby prevented people from dying. But this angered the gods, particularly Zeus. As punishment, Sisyphus was sent to the underworld and was given the task of pushing a boulder up a steep hill. However, once he reached the top, the boulder would roll back down, and Sisyphus was forced to repeat the task for eternity. This punishment is seen as a symbol of meaninglessness and endless repetition that characterizes human existence. In Camus' interpretation, Sisyphus represents the human condition, the struggle of human search for meaning in a world that ultimately is meaningless and absurd, just as Sisyphus' task was meaningless and endless. Camus suggests that the struggle and effort is the only meaningful thing in this meaningless world, and that it is through the acceptance of this absurd fate that one can find freedom and happiness. Finally, Camus proposed the idea of the absurd hero in his philosophy. He believed that the absurd hero is someone who fully accepts the absurd nature of the world and chooses to live in it nonetheless. He writes in The Myth of Sisyphus, "The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy." Camus suggests that happiness and purpose can be found by embracing the absurd and living a life of purpose and meaning, in spite of indifference and meaninglessness of the world. This message is that instead of trying to find meaning in the world, you can find meaning in your own struggle and in your own choices.